I'm Hannah, 29 female. I live in a small, quiet apartment that feels more like a sanctuary than a home. By day, I build worlds out of code, working as a freelance software developer, which sounds a lot more glamorous than it actually is. For most of my life, my world was defined not by what I created, but by what my family needed from me. This is the story of how I finally escaped that definition and showed them and myself who I truly am. It all came to a head at a dinner party they thought would secure their future, but instead, it revealed a truth that shattered their world. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. Growing up, my family home felt less like a place of warmth and more like a workplace where I was the only permanent, unpaid employee. My parents, Luke and Vanessa, were masters of appearances. To the outside world, they were the perfect couple. My father, a sharp financial advisor who always had a confident smile, and my mother, a real estate agent who could sell a lifestyle as easily as she could sell a house. They lived in a beautiful, sprawling home in a manicured suburb, the kind of place where the lawns were always green and the secrets were well kept. Their lives were a carefully curated performance, and they had cast their two daughters in very different roles. My younger sister, Thea, was the star of the show. She was beautiful, charming, and effortlessly popular. At 24, she had dubbed herself a social media influencer, which meant she spent her days taking stylized photos of herself with products our parents bought for her. She was their pride and joy, the living embodiment of the success they wanted to project. Every one of her minor achievements was celebrated with lavish dinners and effusive praise. Her follower count was a regular topic of conversation at family gatherings, discussed with the same reverence one might use for stock market gains. And then there was me. I was the stagehand, the background crew, the person who made sure the lights stayed on and the props were in place. My role was one of utility. From a young age, I was the responsible one. When the Wi-Fi went out, they'd yell, "Hannah, fix the internet." When my mother needed a last-minute slide presentation for a property listing, it was, "Hannah, you're good with computers, whip something up for me." When my father couldn't figure out a new software at his firm, I was his on-call tech support. I was also the family chauffeur, the grocery shopper, the cook for every holiday, and the person who had to listen patiently while my mother complained for hours about a difficult client or my sister fretted over losing a dozen followers. My accomplishments were met with polite, dismissive nods. When I graduated from university with a degree in computer science, my parents threw a small, obligatory barbecue. The main event, however, quickly became Thea, who had just landed a promotional deal with a local boutique. My graduation certificate ended up on a side table, eventually getting covered by a platter of potato salad. My work was a mystery to them, something I did in the dark on a glowing screen. They called it playing on the computer. The money I made was real enough to them, though. I was often asked for loans to cover Thea's car payment or my mother's credit card bill after a particularly enthusiastic shopping trip. These loans were never repaid. When I once gently brought it up, my mother scoffed. "Hannah, please," she'd said, waving a dismissive hand. "It's family. We don't keep tabs." But they did keep tabs. They kept a running tally of my failures to live up to their standards. I wasn't as socially graceful as Thea. I didn't dress in the latest fashions. I preferred a quiet night in with a good book over the loud parties they loved to host. I was a functional cog in their machine, but I was not a sparkling ornament they could show off. This was never said outright, of course. It was communicated through 1,000 tiny cuts. The way their eyes would glaze over when I talked about a project I was excited about, the way they'd interrupt me to ask Thea a trivial question, the way they'd volunteer my time and skills without ever asking me first. "Oh, Hannah can do it," was the unofficial family motto. "She doesn't have much going on." The truth was, I did have things going on. I was a talented developer, building a reputation with my clients for being reliable and innovative. I had friends, hobbies, and dreams of my own. I dreamed of starting my own company one day, of building something that was truly mine. But in that house, those dreams felt distant and flimsy. My ambition was treated like a quirky hobby, something to be indulged until I found a suitable husband to provide for me. A goal my mother frequently reminded me as failing at. One particularly telling incident happened a few years ago, on their anniversary. They had decided to throw a huge party, inviting all their clients and neighbors, everyone they wanted to impress. Thea was tasked with mingling and looking pretty. My job was to help the caterers, manage the bar, and clean up afterwards. For weeks leading up to it, my mother gave me a list of chores. I was to design the invitations, manage the RSVPs online, create a photo slideshow of their life together, and even fix the flickering garden lights. I spent hours on it, sacrificing my own work deadlines. The night of the party, I was running around, refilling wine glasses and clearing plates, when one of my father's colleagues, a man I'd never met, stopped me. "The catering staff is doing a wonderful job," he said kindly. Before I could correct him, my mother swept in, placing a perfectly manicured hand on his arm. "Oh, this is just our Hannah," she said with a laugh, as if that explained everything. "She's such a helper." The man looked from her to my server-like attire, a plain black shirt and pants I'd worn for practicality, and gave a small, understanding smile. In that moment, I wasn't their daughter. I was the help, the invisible girl who made the beautiful life possible but was never meant to be a part of it. I smiled back, a hollow, aching smile, and went back to collecting empty glasses. It was just another day in the life of the servant in my own home. But a day was coming when my invisibility would become my greatest strength. The breaking point didn't arrive with a dramatic explosion, but with a quiet, unreasonable request that felt like the culmination of 1,000 others. It was a Tuesday evening, and I had just gotten off a marathon call with a client from a different time zone. I was exhausted, my brain buzzing with lines of code. All I wanted was to eat a bowl of cereal and sink into my bed. That's when my phone rang, flashing "Mom" on the screen. I sighed, knowing this wouldn't be a quick chat. "Hannah, thank goodness you answered." Vanessa's voice was tight with manufactured urgency. "I need you. Your father and I are in a bit of a crisis." I leaned my head against the cool kitchen wall. "What's wrong?" "We've just secured a dinner with a very, very important man," she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "His name is Kevin Vance. He's a huge deal, an investment mogul. Your father has been trying to get a meeting with him for months, and he's finally agreed to come to the house for dinner next Saturday." I could already see where this was going. "Okay, that's great for Dad." "It's great for all of us," she corrected. "If your father can land him as a client, it would be a massive coup. We have to make the perfect impression. The house has to be immaculate, the food has to be 5-star, everything has to be flawless." I waited for the inevitable. It didn't take long. "So, here's the plan," she continued, not even pausing for breath. "I'll handle the decor and Thea will be our charming hostess. We need you to handle the food. Not just cooking, I mean the whole menu. Appetizers, a main course, dessert, the works, something impressive. I'll send you some ideas I saw in a magazine." I straightened up, a cold knot forming in my stomach. A multi-course meal for a VIP guest was a world away from making a casserole for a family potluck. It required days of planning, shopping, and prep. "Mom, I can't. Next week is impossible for me. I have a major project deadline. I'll be working around the clock, including the weekend." The silence on the other end of the line was heavy and cold. When she finally spoke, her voice was laced with disappointment. "Hannah, I'm not asking you to climb a mountain. I'm asking you to make dinner for your family. This is important. It's for your father's career." "I understand that, but I have a career too," I said, my voice firmer than I intended. "My clients are counting on me. I can't just drop everything." A sharp, humorless laugh crackled through the phone. "Don't be so dramatic. Your little computer job can wait. You sit in your room and type. This is a real, tangible opportunity for this family. For Thea's future, for our security. You have to see the bigger picture." The phrase, "your little computer job," felt like a slap. The job that paid for my apartment, my bills, and more often than not, the loans they requested, was being dismissed as a trivial hobby. All the years of my hard work, the late nights, the stress of running my own freelance business, it all amounted to nothing in her eyes. It was just a thing that kept me from my real duty, which was to serve them. "It's not a little job," I said, my voice trembling slightly with anger. "It's my livelihood, and I'm telling you I don't have the time." "Make time," my father Luke said, his voice suddenly booming from a speakerphone I hadn't realized was on. "Your mother is right, th. Isn't just a dinner, it's a strategic move. Kevin Vance could change everything for us. We need you to step up. We're not asking for much." Not asking for much? They were asking me to sacrifice my professional commitments, to pour my time and energy into their scheme, to once again play the role of the dutiful servant so they could put on their show. They weren't asking, they were demanding. They saw my life, my career, and my time as resources to be deployed at their convenience. "Why can't you hire a caterer?" I asked, a last, desperate attempt at reason. Vanessa scoffed. "A caterer? Don't be ridiculous, it's so impersonal. A home-cooked meal shows care. It shows family values. That's the image we need to present. Besides, why would we pay a stranger a fortune when we have you?" The final phrase hung in the air, "when we have you." I wasn't a daughter, I was an asset, a free, in-house service provider. "I'm sorry," I said, and the words felt both terrifying and liberating. "The answer is no." The fallout was immediate. My mother accused me of being selfish and ungrateful. My father told me I was letting the entire family down. They brought up everything they had ever done for me, framing their parental duties as debts I now refused to repay. The conversation ended with my mother saying, her voice dripping with venom, "Fine, we'll handle it ourselves. But don't come crying to us when you realize who your family is. Some people just don't understand loyalty." She hung up. I stood there in my dark kitchen, the phone still pressed to my ear, shaking with a mixture of rage and grief. For years, I had accepted my role. I had cooked, cleaned, fixed, and funded, all for a few scraps of affection that rarely came. I had allowed them to minimize my life so that theirs could seem grander. But that night, their casual disregard for my career, for my identity outside of them, was a favor too far. It was a line drawn in the sand. They had made it clear that my only value was in my service to them, and I finally realized that if I was ever going to have a life of my own, I had to stop serving theirs. The decision was made. I had to walk away, not just from the dinner, but from the entire dynamic. The invisible girl was about to disappear for good. The phone call was not an end, but a beginning. After I hung up, the anger didn't fade. It solidified into a cold, hard resolve. For years, I had been living in a reactive state, responding to my family's needs and demands. I had let their definition of me become my reality. That night, I decided to stop reacting and start building. I turned off my phone, ignoring the barrage of guilt-tripping texts that I knew were coming. For the first time, their drama was just noise in the distance, and I was tuning it out. My little computer job became my sanctuary. I dove into the project I'd been forced to defend, a complex piece of software for a logistics company. I poured all my frustration and hurt into my work, finding a sense of control and purpose in the clean, logical lines of code. I met my deadline, and the client was thrilled. They paid me a handsome bonus, and more importantly, gave me a glowing testimonial that immediately attracted more high-paying work. My freelance business began to grow, and so did my confidence. With the extra income, I started investing, not in the stock market like my father would advise, but in myself. I took online courses in business management and marketing. I attended tech conferences, networking with people who saw me not as the helper, but as a peer. These were people who were excited about the same things I was, who understood the language I spoke. They saw my passion not as a quirky hobby, but as a valuable skill. It was during this period of intense focus that an idea I'd been nursing for years began to take shape. It was born from my own frustrations as a freelancer. A project management platform designed specifically for independent contractors and small tech teams. It would streamline communication, invoicing, and file sharing all in one place. I knew it was a good idea, but before, it had always been a someday project. My family's constant needs had always felt more urgent. Now, there was nothing standing in my way. I spent my nights and weekends sketching out the user interface, building a prototype, and writing a business plan. The name came to me one evening while I was debugging a particularly tricky piece of code. I finally found the error, and with a single click, the entire program ran perfectly. That was it. That feeling of solving a complex problem with an elegant solution. But it was also a metaphor for my own life. One decision, one click in my mind, had changed everything. I decided to call the company Innovate Solutions, a name that was forward-looking and positive. The first year was a blur of caffeine-fueled all-nighters and relentless work. I moved out of my small apartment and into a slightly larger one that had a spare room I converted into a dedicated office. I hired my first employee, a brilliant young coder I met at a conference. Then another. Within 2 years, Innovate Solutions had moved from my spare bedroom to a small, rented office space downtown. We were a real company. During this time, my contact with my family was minimal. After a few months of angry silence, they had switched tactics. My mother would call and leave tearful voicemails about how much she missed me. My father would send texts with old family photos, captioned "Remember the good times?" Thea even reached out, asking for my help with her new website, an offer I politely declined. I kept them at arm's length, giving them vague, non-committal answers about my life. I told them my freelance work was going well. I never mentioned the company, the office, or my employees. It was my secret, a world they couldn't touch, criticize, or diminish. My success felt fragile, and I was terrified that if I exposed it to them, they would somehow find a way to spoil it, either by taking credit, asking for money, or simply failing to acknowledge it. Innovate Solutions was growing faster than I could have imagined. We secured our first round of seed funding from a small venture capital firm. The validation was intoxicating. These were serious business people, and they believed in me. They believed in my vision. They saw me as a leader, a founder, a CEO. The more I stepped into that role, the more the old Hannah, the helper, faded away. I learned to delegate, to negotiate, to command a room. I was building not just a company, but a new version of myself. The ultimate test came when my business manager told me we needed a larger infusion of capital to scale up and compete with bigger players. He had identified a top-tier investment firm that had a strong interest in emerging tech. The firm was Thorn Capital. My manager had already reached out, and they were interested. They wanted to set up a meeting between me and their CEO. I felt a jolt of shock when I saw the name on the meeting invitation. It was a name I recognized. The CEO of Thorn Capital was Mr. Marcus Thorn. Wait, no, that wasn't the name my mother had said. I mentally scrolled back to that fateful phone call. The name wasn't Thorn, it was Vance, Kevin Vance. For a moment, I felt a strange sense of relief, but also confusion. Had I misremembered? It didn't matter. The opportunity was too big to pass up. The click that had started it all had led me here, to a moment that could secure the future of everything I had built. I had no idea that this path was about to circle back and intersect with the past I had tried so hard to leave behind. The meeting with the investment firm was a success. They were impressed with Innovate Solutions' growth and my vision for the future. They agreed to a significant investment, one that would allow us to hire more staff, expand our marketing, and become a serious contender in the tech space. I wasn't just the founder of a small startup anymore. I was the CEO of a company that was going places. The validation was immense, but I kept my success quiet, sharing it only with my close friends and my team. My family remained in the dark. About a year after I had cut significant contact, my mother started a new campaign to bring me back into the fold. The tearful voicemails were replaced by cheerful, chatty texts. "Just thinking of you, sweetie. Hope you're well." She invited me to lunch. I was hesitant, but a part of me, the part that still longed for a normal family, decided to go. We met at a bright, airy cafe. Vanessa was on her best behavior. She asked about my work in the vaguest possible terms and didn't press for details when I gave her my standard, "it's going well" response. She talked about a recent vacation, a new designer bag she'd bought, and of course, Thea's latest triumphs in the world of social media. It was all surface level, but it was peaceful. For a fleeting moment, I allowed myself to hope that things could be different. This became our new normal, a carefully managed, low-stakes relationship. We'd have lunch every month or so. I'd attend the occasional family birthday dinner. I learned to navigate the conversations, keeping my life private while nodding along to their stories. I was still the quiet, unassuming Hannah in their eyes, the daughter with the little computer job. It was a role I was now happy to play, as it acted as a shield, protecting my real life from their influence. The illusion shattered on a Sunday afternoon. I had stopped by my parents' house to drop off a birthday gift for my father. It was the first time I had been back inside the house in over 2 years. As I walked in, Vanessa was on the phone in the kitchen, her back to me. She was speaking in a hushed, excited tone and didn't hear me enter. "No, everything is set for Saturday," she was saying. "Luke has been working on this for ages. Kevin Vance is notoriously private, but Luke managed to get an introduction through a golf buddy. This dinner has to be perfect." Kevin Vance, the name from that infamous phone call years ago, the name I had thought I might have misremembered. A cold chill went down my spine. Vanessa continued, "He will be here, of course. She'll be a great distraction, keep the conversation light, and Hannah is coming too." She paused and her voice dropped, laced with a familiar mix of condescension and strategy. "Yes, she's finally coming around. She'll be on her best behavior. It's good to have her there. It makes us look like a solid, traditional family. You know how these old money types are. They love that stuff." I froze in the hallway, my hand clutching the gift bag so tightly my knuckles turned white. It all clicked into place. The sudden warmth, the lunches, the invitations, it was all a lie. It wasn't about missing me. It was about needing me as a prop for their next big performance. They were recasting me in the family play, this time as the quiet, dutiful daughter to complete their perfect family portrait for a wealthy potential client. I quietly backed out of the doorway and stood in the hall, my heart pounding. I needed to know more. I waited until I heard her hang up, then walked in with a bright, fake smile. "Hi, Mom, just dropping this off for Dad." She jumped, startled, but quickly recovered. "Hannah, you should have said you were here." "Didn't want to interrupt your call," I said casually, placing the bag on the counter. "Sounds like you have big plans for Saturday." Her eyes lit up. "Oh, we do. Your father is hosting a very important business associate for dinner. His name is Kevin Vance, a wonderful man. We'd love for you to be there, just a quiet family dinner." The pieces were slotting together with horrifying clarity. A few weeks ago, my own COO had mentioned in passing that our lead investor, Mr. Vance, was considering a personal wealth management change and had asked for recommendations. My father, Luke, must have caught wind of this through his professional network and saw the opportunity of a lifetime. He was trying to land the CEO who was backing my company as a personal client. And the most sickening part, they had no idea. They didn't know that the important man they were trying so desperately to impress was already deeply invested in the success of their unassuming daughter. A slow-burning anger, colder and sharper than anything I had felt before, ignited within me. They hadn't changed at all. They had just gotten better at hiding their motives. They still saw me as a tool, a means to an end. They thought I was the same quiet, compliant girl who would cook their meals and fix their computers. They were about to find out just how much she had changed. "A family dinner?" I asked, my voice dangerously sweet. "I'd love to come." My mother beamed, relief washing over her face. "Wonderful, it will be so good to have you there." Oh, it would be good to be there, I thought. This wouldn't just be a family dinner, it would be a final performance. Only this time, I wouldn't be the stagehand. I would be the one directing the show. The week leading up to the dinner party was a masterclass in deception, both theirs and mine. My mother called me every day with updates and instructions, slipping easily back into her role as commander-in-chief. She dictated the dress code, Something simple and elegant, dear. Nothing too techy. The menu she had decided on, and my duties for the evening. In a stunning display of audacity, she asked if I could arrive early to help her with the finer details of the meal preparation, as she was feeling overwhelmed. Years ago, this would have sent me into a spiral of resentment. Now, it was almost amusing. I agreed to everything with a serene and helpful tone that seemed to delight her. Of course, Mom, I'll be there at 4. What can I do to help with the appetizers? I played the part of the redeemed, dutiful daughter perfectly. Every cheerful yes, of course, and no problem at all was a carefully placed brick in the trap I was laying. Inside, I was a whirlwind of strategic planning. I knew I had to handle this perfectly. A screaming match or a dramatic exposé would only make me look unstable and unprofessional in front of Kevin. My revenge couldn't be loud. It had to be quiet, precise, and devastating. It had to be delivered not with a shout, but with a smile. My first call was to my own office. I spoke to my assistant. "Sarah," I said, "can you pull up my schedule with Mr. Vance? I need to know every meeting, every call, every email we've exchanged in the past year." My second move was to do some research on my own investor. I knew Kevin Vance as a sharp, no-nonsense businessman who valued innovation and integrity. We had a fantastic professional relationship. He was tough but fair, and he respected me as a CEO. I recalled him mentioning his passion for philanthropy, particularly in funding educational programs for underprivileged youth in STEM. This gave me an idea. The day of the dinner, I did as I was told. I arrived at my parents' house at 4 o'clock sharp, wearing a simple but expensive-looking sheath dress, a far cry from my usual jeans and hoodie. My mother, Vanessa, looked me over with an approving nod. "Oh, Hannah, you clean up so nicely," she chirped, as if I were a dusty old vase she'd just polished. I spent the next 2 hours in her pristine kitchen, playing the role of sous chef. I chopped vegetables, arranged a cheese platter, and put the finishing touches on a dessert she had bought from a fancy bakery, but was planning to pass off as her own. Thea floated in and out, complaining about the Wi-Fi speed affecting her ability to post on Instagram. My father, Luke, paced the living room, rehearsing his talking points about market trends and portfolio diversification. The air was thick with ambition and anxiety. They were so consumed by their own performance that they paid me no real attention, other than to issue orders. As I worked, I listened. They spoke about Kevin Vance in reverent tones, discussing his net worth, his influence, and the prestige that would come from managing his money. "This will put our firm on the map," Luke said, adjusting his tie for the 10th time. "Having Kevin Vance as a client is the ultimate seal of approval." "We just have to be perfect," Vanessa fretted, fluffing a decorative pillow. "Thea, remember to ask him about his travels. And Hannah," she said, turning to me, "just try to be pleasant. Let your father do the talking." "Don't worry," I said, my voice smooth as silk. "I won't say a word." Just before 7, I excused myself to freshen up. In the guest bathroom, I took a deep breath and sent a quick text message. It was to Kevin Vance's personal number, a number I had because he was one of my most important business partners. The text was simple. "Kevin, looking forward to seeing you tonight. Small world, isn't it? Hannah." A minute later, my phone buzzed. His reply, "Hannah, I had no idea. This just got a lot more interesting. See you soon." The stage was set. The actors were in place. And the guest of honor was now aware that the evening's script had a secret, unannounced co-star. I walked back out into the living room, a small, genuine smile on my face for the first time all day. My family mistook it for contentment, for the quiet satisfaction of a daughter happy to be back in her place. They had no idea it was the smile of a director watching her masterpiece about to begin. The doorbell was about to ring, and the curtain was about to rise on the final act. At precisely 7:30 p.m., the doorbell chimed. A sudden electric tension filled the house. Luke straightened his tie one last time, Vanessa smoothed her dress, and Thea flashed a dazzling, practiced smile. "I'll get it," she announced, gliding to the door. I remained in the background, standing quietly near the entrance to the dining room, exactly where a good supporting character should be. My heart was beating a steady, calm rhythm. I wasn't nervous. I was ready. Thea opened the door to reveal a tall, distinguished man with silvering hair and a confident, easygoing posture. It was Kevin Vance. He looked exactly as I remembered him from our last board meeting, impeccably dressed, with sharp, intelligent eyes that missed nothing. "Kevin, welcome," my father boomed, stepping forward with his hand outstretched. "It is an absolute honor to have you in our home. I'm Luke, and this is my wife, Vanessa." "The pleasure is all mine," Kevin said, shaking their hands with polite warmth. "Thank you so much for inviting me." "And this is our youngest daughter, Thea," Vanessa said, beaming as she pushed Thea forward. Thea gave a little curtsy-like dip. "It's so amazing to meet you, Mr. Vance. I'm a huge admirer of your work." Kevin smiled politely, though I could see a flicker of professional detachment in his eyes. "Please, call me Kevin." My family began to lead him into the living room, a flurry of fawning hospitality. They offered him a drink, pointed him to the most comfortable chair, and began the small talk they had so carefully rehearsed. I stayed where I was, waiting. I knew he had seen me. I had caught his eye the moment he stepped through the door, and I saw a brief flash of recognition and surprise before his professional mask slipped back into place. He was playing his part, too. After a few minutes of Luke explaining the history of the single malt scotch he had poured, Vanessa finally gestured vaguely in my direction. "And over there is our other daughter, Hannah," she said, her tone the same she had used to introduce the caterer at her anniversary party years ago. It was an afterthought, a piece of set dressing she had to account for. Luke chuckled. "Hannah's our quiet one. She works with computers." Kevin Vance's entire demeanor shifted. He turned his full attention away from my parents, his polite smile transforming into a genuinely warm, bright grin. He stood up and walked directly towards me, ignoring the stunned looks on their faces. "Hannah," he said, his voice filled with sincere pleasure. "It's fantastic to see you. I had no idea this was your family when Luke reached out." He reached me and, instead of a handshake, gave me a brief, friendly hug. It was a gesture of familiar and deep professional respect. I smiled back. "Kevin, it's good to see you too. Welcome." The living room was utterly silent. My parents and sister stood frozen, their mouths slightly agape. They looked like statues in a museum of shattered expectations. Their brains were visibly trying to process the scene, the billionaire investment mogul, their golden goose, warmly embracing their quiet daughter. Luke was the first to recover, though his voice was strained. "You two know each other." Kevin turned to him, his expression one of polite confusion. "Know each other? Luke, Hannah is one of the most brilliant founders I've ever had the privilege of investing in. Innovate Solutions is one of the top-performing assets in our tech portfolio." He then looked back at me. "Honestly, most of the credit for that goes to the leadership of your CEO here." He gestured to me. CEO. The word hung in the air, electric and heavy. I watched as the color drained from my mother's face. My father's confident smile had vanished, replaced by a slack-jawed stare. Thea just blinked, her influencer-ready smile completely gone. "CEO," Vanessa whispered, the word barely audible. Kevin, either genuinely oblivious or a masterful actor, continued. "Absolutely. Hannah built her company from the ground up. She's one of the sharpest minds in the industry. You must be incredibly proud." Proud? The word was a dagger. My parents stood there, speechless. All the lies, all the dismissals, all the years of treating me like a helper with a little computer job were crashing down around them in the silent judgment of the one man they wanted to impress above all others. My father cleared his throat, trying desperately to salvage the situation. "Well, yes, of course, we've always supported Hannah's projects." Kevin's sharp eyes darted from my father's nervous face to mine. He understood everything in that instant. He saw the whole story, but he didn't call them out. He did something far more effective. He turned the conversation to business, but directed all his questions and attention to me. "So, Hannah," he said, completely ignoring my stunned family, "about that new feature rollout for Q4, I had a few thoughts." He had effectively dismissed my father as irrelevant. He was talking to the real power in the room. He was talking to his business partner, to his equal, to the boss. The carefully constructed stage my parents had built for their grand performance had just been dismantled. Piece by the truth, and all I had to do was stand there and let it happen. The rest of the dinner was an exercise in excruciating awkwardness. My parents were completely thrown off their game. Their rehearsed script was useless. Every topic my father tried to broach about finance, Kevin would expertly pivot, turning to me and asking, "Hannah, what are your thoughts on the market from a tech perspective?" Or, "Innovate Solutions navigated that downturn beautifully. How did you manage your cash flow?" He wasn't being cruel. He was simply talking to the person in the room he considered a peer. He treated me with the deference and respect due a successful CEO, and in doing so, he rendered my father, the man who was supposed to be courting him, utterly powerless. Luke, who had planned to present himself as a financial guru, was reduced to a stammering host, unable to get a foothold in the conversation. Vanessa, for her part, was silent. She kept shooting me panicked, confused looks, as if trying to solve a complex puzzle. Thea tried to interject once with a story about a brand collaboration, but the words died in her throat under the weight of the serious business talk filling the room. The five-star meal I had helped prepare sat largely uneaten. The atmosphere was so thick with unspoken tension you could have cut it with a knife. I remained calm and professional, answering Kevin's questions thoughtfully and engaging in the conversation as I would in any boardroom. I didn't gloat or throw any pointed remarks. I didn't have to. My success, and Kevin's open acknowledgement of it, was doing all the work for me. The ultimate revenge wasn't in screaming or accusing, it was in simply being myself, the self I had built far away from their suffocating influence. As soon as dessert was over, Kevin made his excuses. "This was a lovely evening," he said, shaking my parents' limp hands. "It was wonderful to finally meet you all." He turned to me, his tone shifting back to one of warm collegiality. "Hannah, I'll have my assistant set up a call for next week. Walk me out." I walked him to his car in the cool night air. As soon as we were out of earshot, he let out a low whistle. "Well," he said with a wry smile, "that was one of the most uncomfortable dinners of my life. Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said, and for the first time it felt completely true. "Thank you, Kevin, for treating me like a CEO." He nodded, understanding my real meaning. "You are a CEO, Hannah, and a damn good one. Never forget that." He got into his car and drove off, leaving me standing alone in the driveway. When I walked back inside, the facade of civility shattered. "What was that?" Vanessa hissed, her face contorted with fury and humiliation. "You set us up, you made us look like fools." "I didn't do anything," I replied calmly, my voice even. "I just came to the dinner you invited me to. The rest was just the truth." "The truth," my father sputtered, his face red with anger. "You lied to us for years, hiding your success, letting us believe you were nothing." "You believed what you wanted to believe," I said, the cold resolve from years ago returning. "You never asked about my career because you weren't interested. You didn't see me as anything more than a convenience, a servant to call when you needed something. Tonight, you didn't want a daughter at your table, you wanted a prop. The only problem is, your prop turned out to be the main character." I looked from my mother's furious face to my father's bewildered one, and then to my sister, who just looked lost. I didn't feel anger anymore. I just felt a profound sense of closure. They could never hurt me again because I no longer needed their approval. I had my own. "I'm done," I said softly. "I'm done being your helper, your ATM, and your silent, dutiful daughter. I'm done playing a role in this family that you wrote for me. I have my own life now, a life that I built for myself." I didn't wait for a response. I walked out of their perfect house for the last time, leaving them standing amidst the ruins of their meticulously planned evening. As I drove away, I didn't look back. I was closing a chapter, not just on my family, but on the person I used to be. The door was closing on the servant, the helper, the invisible girl. And a new one was opening wide, revealing a future I would write entirely on my own terms, as the boss of my own life.